Well, I think a lot of people take themselves too seriously. And Douglas MacArthur once said, "Always be serious, but never take yourself too seriously." And I've not done that. I don't think I'm the best lawyer. I don't think I'm the smartest guy. But if I want to find the best lawyer or want to find the smartest guy or girl, I know how to do that, and that has been a real boon to me. But when I was at UK, I was on student government up there, and Otis Arnold Singletary was the president of the university, and he and I became really good friends. And as I was leaving to come home to Paducah, he said, "Mark, always be humble, no matter how arrogant you are." And I think it's a really good advice. It's always very good to be humble.
I'm Todd Faulkner, and welcome to Leadership Magnified. That's my guest this week, Mark Bryant. The longtime attorney is founder and president of the Bryant Law Center, based in Paducah. The front page article of the Los Angeles Times once described Mark as, quote, a former prosecutor with a swashbuckling style that charms juries. In this interview, you'll find out why. Take a listen. Mark Bryant, welcome to Leadership Magnified.
Thank you, Todd Faulkner. It's good to be here.
Full disclosure for people listening or watching on YouTube, I came here almost 20 years ago, and I have covered many cases that you have been the attorney on.
Yeah.
And during that time, I always felt we had mutual respect. You as an attorney had a job to do, and I always felt like you thought, as a journalist, you knew we had a job to do.
Yes, sir.
I think that's a good working relationship. So I just want to say thank you.
Yes, sir. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
So before we get to leadership and your law firm and so forth, let's first talk about you. You're a Paducah boy through and through, right?
Yeah, I am Kentucky fried. I mean, I am a fourth generation Paducah, Todd. My great grandparents, my grandparents, my parents, they were all here, and then we raised three children here in Paducah, and I'm sorry they're not here now because this is a great place to live. In fact, Todd, when I go out around the country, and I've got lawyer friends all over the United States, and from time to time somebody will ask me, said, "Why do you still live in Paducah?" And I say, "Because I can." Because this is the greatest place in the world. This is the best kept secret there is.
So let's fast forward to it's time to go to college or university.
Yeah.
Did you know immediately you wanted to go into law?
No, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But Albert Jones was my first cousin once removed. He was my mother's first cousin. And Albert was a former FBI agent and the Commonwealth's attorney here in Paducah. And he talked to me a lot about it. He said, you'd be a really good lawyer and you ought to do that. And he said, the best thing about being a lawyer is if you get out and you get a job with somebody and you don't like them, you can always strike out on your own and sink or swim on your own. And so I took Albert up on that and finally decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I went to law school at the University of Kentucky. And when I got out of law school, gosh, it's hard to believe, but 53 years ago, I got out of the University of Kentucky College of Law. And you talk about wet behind the ears. And the first job I had, I worked for Joseph J. Grace, who's a former state senator here in McCracken County. He was you talk about ancient history now. He was Happy Chandler's majority leader in the state Senate. I mean, that was that long ago. So I worked for Joe for almost a year, and then Albert called me one day, and he said, "Come over here, I want to talk to you." And he had some federal funding to hire the first full-time assistant ever in McCracken County in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. And so he hired me, and I started working for Albert. And then I hadn't been there but like 2.5 years, and I'd tried a lot of cases by then because that's what we did. And one day Albert told me, he said, Jimmy Carter got elected. He said, "I sure would like to get to be the United States attorney." And I'd known Julian Carroll for years, and I'd helped him get elected. So I called the governor up, and I said, "Governor, Albert wants to be the United States attorney for the Western District if you can get him nominated by President Carter." And so sure enough, he did. And then the funniest thing, Todd, was after Albert found out he was going to get elected, he was afraid to tell Lou because she'd be mad and she wouldn't want to move to Louisville. So he waited until the last minute before he had to go up for Senate confirmation before he told Lou, and boy, he was right. She did not want to move to Louisville. but Albert did, and he is probably the only United States attorney in the history of America that ever lived in an Airstream trailer till his wife finally said, "You need to get a house up there." So when he did that, I became the Commonwealth's attorney in Paducah, but I hadn't been a lawyer long enough to actually accept that position. So the governor asked the attorney general at the time, who was Bob Stevens, if he would appoint me a special assistant attorney general. So for more than a year, I was a special assistant attorney general. And then the governor appointed me Commonwealth's attorney, and then I ran for re-election. In fact, I got elected 3 times.
Yeah, you served from, if I remember right, 1976 to 1990.
90, yeah.
What kind of was that work rewarding, representing the county and the state?
I absolutely loved it. I felt like I was doing a real service to the public, and even as a kid, I was a John F. Kennedy fan. And when he said, "Ask not what you can do for your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," and he encouraged us all to get jobs in public service, and I did. And I loved being a prosecutor because I knew I was keeping the streets safe for the community. And but finally, my wife, Sue, one day she said, "Mark, what are you going to do when you grow up?" And I was 40, and I said, "I think I'm going to buy a Dairy Queen." And she said, "A Dairy Queen? Why would you do that?" And I said, "Because I just tired of lawyers, and they all lie to me." And I mean, that was back then. I've changed my mind about lawyers. I love lawyers now. Sure, all lawyers got bad apples like everything else, but all in all, it's an honest bunch of people. And so I then decided I'd just open my own law practice. And so I did in January of 1990. And we have gone full speed ahead for the last 36 years, and it's done real well for us.
I want to talk about how you built up Bryant Law Center over the years. First, and I want to ask you to retell a story, and we can cut it from the pod if you don't want to. But several years ago, you told me a story about how there was, I believe, if I have this right, a law firm out in L.A. They flew you and your wife out.
Yes.
Put on really lavishly tried to convince you. I want you to tell that story because I think it says a lot about your love for Western Kentucky.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, Todd, when I left the Commonwealth Attorney's office, I had a friend that was, he was a big client of a big law firm in downtown LA, and they needed a trial lawyer in this company. And I mean, they were a huge outfit. Even back then, in 1989, they had, 300 or 400 lawyers and everything. And so they asked me to come out for an interview, and they offered to pay for Sue and me to go out there. So we flew out there, and they had us a limousine, and they picked us up in that limousine, and they took us from LAX right down to, I remember their address was and I can't remember the name of the street now, but it's the main drag right through LA, and they were number 1. And so we got down. So anyhow, we were pulling out LAX, and the crowd was just awful. And I remember being in the back of that limousine, and I looked over at Sue, and I said, "There is no way I can live like this." And so we got downtown, and they brought me into the interview room, and I told them, I said, "I'm embarrassed to tell you this, and I will give you your money back, but there is no way I can live in Los Angeles." And they laughed and said, "Well, you're not the first person we've ever had come in and tell us that." And so they didn't demand their money back, and we stayed for a couple of days, and we flew back home, and but that was it. But, it was really kind of funny, though, Todd, because for years, we raised 3 children here, and one of them's a circuit judge, Jennifer, in Louisville. David's a lawyer in Louisville, and he runs our operation. We've got an office up in Louisville. And then our son, Jeff, he works for Disney in Orlando. He and his wife both do, and we've got 5 grandkids, and life's been really, really good to us. But when I started this law firm in 1990, I started out defending criminal cases because that's what I knew. And I represented a lot of death penalty murder cases, and in all those murder cases, never got a single conviction for murder. And routinely, even on death penalty murder cases, I'd try one, and they'd qualified, death penalty qualified, and the jury come back and give us 8 years. I mean, that happened really pretty often, so I was very successful in that. But I found out, I was watching F. Lee Bailey when he was representing the football player.
O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, O.J. Simpson. And he had a civil suit that he was going to try, and one of the commentators on television says, he didn't know how to try a civil suit. And they said, a lawyer can try a lawsuit, can try any kind of case. And I got a lot of confidence out of that because I found out that to be true. So I tried a personal injury case here in McCracken County, which at the time, I represented K.O. Mullen, who was a golf pro here in Paducah and very, very adored, and I loved him too. And anyhow, I represented him. He was in a terrible car accident. A Coors beer truck ran over him. And the day of the trial, the insurance defense lawyer offered me $100,000 to settle the case. And I said, well, that makes it easy to go to trial. And we went to trial, and the jury came back and gave him almost $2 million. But the comment that K.O. made to me at the time was, I'd give him $2 million to have my health back. And so that really was the beginning of all this personal injury thing, because I knew then I could do it. And I've had the really good fortune of having lawyers that stay with me. Kevin Shannon came over there 28 years ago because Albert Jones told me, he said, Albert was a mayor 28 years ago, and he told me, he said, there's this kid lawyer over here working for me, and he is as smart as anybody I've ever seen, and you need to hire him. And so I called Kevin and hired him 28 years ago, and he was one of the smartest things I've ever done, and we've got along great for 28 years, and he is my law partner and dear friend. Then 26 years ago, my daughter Jennifer was in law school at UK, and she told me, she said, she just graduated. She said, Daddy, I'm coming home to practice law with you, but not until I got me a man. And I laughed, and she laughed. And of course, then she got her a man, but he was from Louisville, and he didn't want to move to Paducah. But anyhow, Jennifer said, but Daddy, there's this girl in my class, and she is editor of the Law Review, and she is smarter than everybody else up here, and she works 24/7. You need to talk to Emily Ward about coming to work for you. And so I did, and that was 26 years ago, and that was the other smart thing that I did, because really I've found over the years of having a lot of good lawyers around me that the key to success for me has been to get people smarter than me to go to work for me, because they make me look good. And it's worked out really well, Todd.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, your name is on the building, the Bryant
Yeah,
Law
yeah.
Center. How would you describe your leadership style with your partners and with people working for you? What's kind of your general approach?
Well, I'll tell you what, I have been really, really fortunate to hire really smart people, and I just stay out of their way. A case will come in, like yesterday. I mean, I had a really fascinating call yesterday morning, and I had two really big-time lawyers call and want to talk to me about filing a lawsuit for Mayfield, Kentucky, over the tornadoes, because they think that they've got the proof to prove, or at least to get us to a jury and prove that those tornadoes were caused by climate change, which was caused by oil and gas and coal. And we talked about it for a long time, and finally decided we're going to wait on some cases that are coming down from the Supreme Court. But the way I do all this, like the very first big case that we ever got was a train derailment more than 20 years ago, and I'd never handled a train derailment case before. But it was a client that called me, and he told me, he said, you remember me, you represented me in a divorce some time ago. And I didn't remember the guy, and he told me, he said, we've had a train derailment in Tamaro, Illinois, and we can't even get a lawyer to come over here and see us. Would you come see us? Well, I didn't even know where Tamaro, Illinois was, but I got to doing some research on train derailments, and then there were about 4,000 people up there that had been evacuated from their homes for a couple of weeks, and so I knew that we had a claim. And so, long story short, I went up there and I met with them, and when I did, there were 8 people, and I said, I can't do this for just 8 people. I said, if we can is there a place we can get up here and have a bunch of people and talk to them about it? And they rented the high school up there, and they had about 1,000 people show up. And then all of a sudden I thought, I could do this. So I sued the railroad, and it was a huge case. We got at the Canadian National Railroad, and we settled the case for millions and millions of dollars. And all of a sudden we were off. I mean, after that, Emily and Kevin and my son David got involved in it, and we had train derailment cases all over the country. And we've done that. I mean, we had the last one anybody's heard about was up in East Palestine, Ohio, and that was 3 years ago in February of this year. and we had almost 1,000 clients up in East Palestine, Ohio. And it was funny because a female CPA called me, Todd, and said she lived up there, and would I come up and talk to them? And see, you can't chase these cases. You can't go up there and say, hey, I want to be your lawyer. Somebody got to call you. So this woman called me, and I went up there and I met with her, and I said, how'd you happen to call me? And she said, well, if I had a car wreck and I put in auto accident lawyer, there'd be about 1 million lawyers come up. But she said, I put in trained derailment lawyer, and you're the only lawyer that came up in the United States.
Your name popped up
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, and it was really funny too, Todd, because there was a quote that I really liked. Old Joe Kennedy said years ago, and that was Jack Kennedy's dad. He said, if you want to make money, you got to go where the money is. Well, Sue and I were raising these 3 kids in here in Paducah, and we couldn't leave. And I didn't want to leave Paducah, but when the internet hit, it changed everything, because suddenly, not only did we have these cases, but Justice Graves one day was in there to see me, and he said, you need to get involved in pharmaceutical cases. And went to some seminars on pharmaceutical cases, and next thing I knew, we had thousands of clients around the country, and we didn't have to leave Paducah. We had this stuff coming in on the internet and on telephones, and then when Zoom hit, everything changed.
Do you ever look back, over your career and just in awe of what you've built and the reach that you have from Paducah all across the United States?
I am absolutely shocked by it, because I've met so many really, really nice people around the country, and they're always good to me. It's just like, Andy Bashir. I've known Andy since he's a little kid, and Andy had a case that he represented the Boy Scouts here in Paducah, and I was an Eagle Scout, and it was Troop 1, which was the old Boy Scout group I was in, so I got involved in that case with Andy, and I saw how smart he was, and what a good guy he was, and so we've had a great relationship, and now I'm trying to help him, and if he decides he wants to run for president, because I've got buddies, that have just done exceedingly well around the country that are, lawyers, and I'm setting them up with Andy, and so it really it has kind of shocked me that I've been able to do it, because anyhow, I don't think I've done any big deal, but some people think so.
You've built a network.
Yeah, I have done that.
You are close to the Bashir family. I'm just curious. It's pretty clear he's probably going to run. Do you think he could win the nomination?
I think if he doesn't, and in fact, George Will, whom I always have a lot of respect for, the columnist, he said one day that people don't downplay Andy Bashir. He said, I still remember when they did that with Jimmy Carter, and I remember when they did it to Bill Clinton. And I'm telling you, Andy Bashir is as smart as Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton is smart. But Andy Bashir went to Vanderbilt, and he went to the University of Virginia to law school, and he is a sharp, sharp cookie. And I don't know if he'll be president of the United States, but I know the way this thing works because I've watched it for a lifetime. If you want to be president of the United States, or even if you want to be vice president of the United States, the only way you can do it is run for president. Or if you want to be attorney general of the United States, the only way you can do it is run for president. So I don't, I'm this thing with Andy where he is running the national Democratic governors is a big deal, and it opens up a lot of doors for him.
Yeah, I've read it's kind of a litmus test for him as he runs that. Let's circle back and we'll wrap things up. What's this is kind of a two-part. You've witnessed a lot of attorneys, and maybe not just attorneys, but what missteps do you think some leaders make as they continue to build their career, attorneys or otherwise? What's a misstep you see potential leaders make?
Well, I think a lot of people take themselves too seriously. And Douglas MacArthur once said, always be serious, but never take yourself too seriously. And I've not done that. I don't think I'm the best lawyer. I don't think I'm the smartest guy. But if I want to find the best lawyer or want to find the smartest guy or girl, I know how to do that. And that has been a real boon to me. But, when I was at UK, I was on student government up there, and Otis Arnold Singletary was the president of the university, and he and I became really good friends. And as I was leaving to come home to Paducah, he said, Mark, always be humble, no matter how arrogant you are. And I think it's a really good advice. It's always very good to be humble.
Okay, I want to end by quoting something in your own bio that I had never read until I was searching a couple days ago, and I just laughed out loud. I thought it was great. This is in your bio on your website. Quote, describing you, quote, the front page article of the Los Angeles Times describes him as a former prosecutor with a swashbuckling style that charms juries. What do you think of that?
Funny. It was really funny. I tried that. That was a murder case that I tried. I represented a Marine corpsman that came back from Iraq, and he shot his very best friend. Our story was it was an accident. The other side said he did it on purpose, and the jury gave him 8 years, and they were trying to give him the death penalty. So, but anyhow, they sent in. My defense was post-traumatic stress disorder. He was over there killing people when he's 18 years old, and so I had a psychiatrist, and somehow or another it ended up they learned about it in Los Angeles. A reporter that was reporting about post-traumatic stress disorder in Vietnam, so he flew to Carlisle County, Kentucky, and followed that, and then that's what he wrote, and it's on the front page of I've got it in my office. It's really pretty cool. Heady stuff.
All right, Mark Bryant, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Todd. That was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it. Thanks for listening this week. If you liked it, tell a friend, share it on social media. Video and sound by Senior Executive Producer Morgan Regal. Editing by Brian Clapp. Until next week, stay safe, friends.